भारत आज इस दुनिया का सबसे युवा देश है। हमारी 62% से ज़्यादा आबादी कार्य आयु वर्ग यानी कि 15 से 59 वर्ष के अंदर है। एंड more than 54% of the total population is below 25 years of age. The strength of this youth is even more evident in the Indian heartland, and today there are companies that are taking bolder bets in unlocking this power of the youth from the rural areas. Joining us next is Padma Shri awardee and CEO of Zoho Corporation, Mr. Sridhar Vembu, to talk about the power of youth and employability and what that means for us. मेरी ही तरह श्रीधर जी का भी एक गांव कनेक्शन है, वो भी गांव में रहते हैं। इस साल उन्हें पद्मश्री से नवाजा गया है। उन्होंने भी ये कर दिखाया कि जड़ों की ओर लौटना और फिर भी दुनिया को जीतना संभव है।
So this is our school here, and we just started it about 6 months ago and built this from a converted cow shed really. And this village where I am at, I've been here for the last about 18 months, and slowly we are developing projects like the school, and over there we have actually a new kitchen coming up to feed all our people here, the school kids, the farm workers, the Zoho staff who work here, all of us. So if you look at India's demographic reality, 60 to 65% of our population is still rural, and even in an urban state like Tamil Nadu, about 45 to 50% of the population is rural. If you look at the children born, the more disproportionately larger share of the kids are born in rural areas still. So which means that you, as an entrepreneur, you have to both look for demand from rural areas and create the corresponding supply and jobs in rural areas. Without it, India really cannot make serious economic progress. So it is very important for India's development for us to focus on rural areas. That's the first major point here. The second is that if you look at real estate prices, urban areas are highly expensive, and that directly impacts the profitability of any new project, new venture you create. Whether it's for profit or whether it's non-profit like a school, real estate prices play a major role in whether your project is viable. So as a new entrepreneur, if you move to rural areas, today you can actually find much cheaper land, much cheaper rent, and therefore make your ventures substantially less, burden your venture with the cost structure that makes it unable to compete with the giants. So all of these two factors, that the demographics in rural areas and the urban real estate prices together almost require that we look at rural areas, and that is what we have been doing for the last 10 years, looking at it. And the important thing here to make this work is that you have to invest in skill and talent development. That is very critical. Without it, this rural ideas may not work. So you have to assume that part of your entrepreneurial mission is to create the talent in rural areas. With these in place, we can definitely do very well in rural areas. The infrastructure is increasingly better and better in rural areas, and the connectivity is really good. So with that, we can actually make these ideas work. So when you look at your rural initiatives, the most important aspect, the most critical thing to cover is how to develop the talent, develop the skills in rural areas. You cannot go into a rural area and assume that talent or skills are readily available. And in fact, the most vital priority for our country, as well as for what entrepreneurs must do, is to develop the skills we need for our projects. And that is what we have actually done successfully at Zoho with our Zoho Schools of Learning initiative, where we take students from high schools or polytechnics, typically at the 17, 18, 19 age group, and we invest heavily in practical, relevant skill training. And that takes about anywhere from about a year to year and a half, and then they become ready for jobs at Zoho in a variety of streams, from everything from software engineering to support to marketing to pre-sales engineering. All of these jobs that we now have filled with Zoho Schools of Learning trained graduates. So this is actually very vital for entrepreneurs to realize. And if you go in with the mindset that we have to develop and nurture these skills from raw talent that's available, from the demographics that is available, then you are much more likely to find your venture successful, and you are also going to find passionate and loyal people. That's been our experience at Zoho. So one of the challenges that comes up when you have rural centers like we do is how do people in our rural centers and in urban centers like Chennai work together. And we have had our rural centers in Tenkasi and Redigunta for at least 5 or 6 years now in operation, in Tenkasi actually longer. And so we developed some approaches to tackle this problem. One of the first ideas is people in our Tenkasi center or Chennai center, Redigunta center, we get them to meet every about a month or two in one location. That could be in Chennai, that could be in Tenkasi, or that could be in Redigunta. But people do travel and meet and spend about 2 or 3 days. And we have developed ways in which, for example, for staying and working together, all of these we made it easy as possible, so that people can mingle and work together freely on this. And the second aspect here is now as we expand our rural centers, we are kind of mandating that every team meet at least once a month or once every 2 months in one location. So if you have a team of say 20 people who are dispersed across 4 locations, they all travel to meet in one place about every 2 months at least. So this is an approach that keeps the teams together in a way. And then when you work online, you already know this person. You've already met them in a real world context. Then you are able to pick up from the thread. And this is actually vital because in fact, as remote work becomes the norm, the physical meetings actually become more vital, and not just to get work done, but to actually socialize and get to know your team members. This aspect cannot be ignored. This is what is vital for Zoho. So if you look at our $5 trillion goal for India, crucial thing is we cannot look at our rural economy just as a source of demand. We also have to look at it as a source of production and wealth creation there. That's important because otherwise rural economies cannot balance. Where if it's only a source of demand, how do they generate the demand? Where is the income? Where is the production that they can trade, the rural people can trade to consume the goods from outside? So it's very important for entrepreneurs to help balance the rural economy and to create and nurture the talent locally. And that is critical to achieve that $5 trillion economic goal. And the good news is you have the talent pool, you can do that product innovation from rural areas. And for this you have to think creatively. And the way I always think about new projects is I always assume that I start from year -5 or year -2, where I spend that time, 1 or 2 years or 5 years, to catch up on the skills needed, and then your clock starts for your product development. And mentally thinking that way allows you to then set the expectation right from your rural initiatives. And when you give yourself that longer runway, you are much more likely to succeed with your projects. And this is actually vital because this is what allows the rural population to be both a source of demand and a source of supply. So how do companies enable this process? And we can actually, from Zoho experience, we can say that first you must believe in rural areas, you must believe in the talent. That's the first step because you have to assume that your project will succeed. You have to have faith in the local talent available, faith that they can be trained and the skills can be created. So if the companies come with that mindset, for which top leadership has to be committed to this. At Zoho, I am absolutely committed to our rural initiatives, which is why I'm actually relocated myself to a village here. And this type of commitment is needed for rural initiatives to succeed, and the rewards are immense for this. When you do this, you get a very talented workforce that is also very committed and loyal and long term. And just to cite one benefit, the attrition from rural areas, from our rural offices, is a lot lower than attrition from big cities. And that is vital for long-term product development, long-term R&D, all of these. So when you invest, when you believe in people, you do get paid back in terms of loyalty and commitment. So that is how companies should think about this problem. So what can governments do to enable this rural transformation? First, of course, the infrastructure part. And increasingly, the news is good on this front. For example, our village has the last mile connectivity, road connectivity through Prime Minister's road building scheme, which actually has delivered here. I mean, we can see better roads now than in the last decade before. Similarly, now we have actually a good high-speed fiber optic connection here. And that is also something that the government is now committed to enable every village to be connected with fiber optic cable. And the speeds are very good. Actually, I get more than 200 megabit per second in this village. And this is actually compares very well, very favorably with even with Silicon Valley. And most Silicon Valley residents don't get such speeds today. So you have, these are the pieces that infrastructure, roads and broadband connectivity. And then the sanitation projects like Swachh Bharat are slowly taking root here. So these are critical for the governments to play that enabling role. And the local district government here also is investing in skill building, job fairs, all of those. And I have participated in a few of those. And there is a commitment at the local level, I see. The district collectors are quite dynamic. And they are bringing this energy to these districts. For example, our district here, Tenkasi, recently launched a marketing initiative to attract skills and talent and investment to these areas. That used to be happening only at the state level, now that is happening at the district level. All of these are vital for governments to enable rural transformation. So what is the most important thing for an SMB to focus on? Well, not too long ago, Zoho itself was an SMB, and we started from these roots. So the thing that we focused on obsessively is to ensure the best customer experience in whatever we did. And then from then onwards, that word of mouth effect spreads, and from one customer you get 10 customers to 100 customers. That is how we grew. So have an obsessive focus on the customer and your customer experience, whether it's your product or service. That is the most vital thing for you to succeed in business.